Victor Hale's penthouse shimmered like a glass crown above Manhattan. Every surface gleamed, marble floors, sculpted art, gold fixtures that reflected the city lights. To the world, he was a man who had rebuilt his life after pain. To himself, he was finally untouchable. His new wife, Elena Moreau, glided through that world like she was born for it. Younger, graceful, adored by the media, she was the image of perfection Victor had longed for. Their wedding was a billionaire's dream, exclusive guests, champagne towers, and magazine covers that labeled them the golden couple. But behind every perfect photograph, something uneasy flickered in her eyes. Elena didn't know much about Victor's past, only whispers. His ex-wife, Lena Hale, was mentioned in tones of irritation, as if saying her name left a bad taste. "She wasn't built for my world," Victor would say, smiling tightly. "She broke under the pressure." But truth had a funny way of finding its voice again. It began small. A leaked document here. A rumor there. Victor brushed them off: competitors, envious employees, online noise. But then one of his hotels in Miami was hit with a surprise lawsuit over ownership rights. Then another in Chicago. Within weeks, 3 of his luxury estates were frozen under investigation. His lawyers couldn't find the source. Every move felt anticipated, like someone had studied his playbook. At first, Victor blamed coincidence. "Business storms come and go," he told Elena, reassuringly. But when his flagship headquarters faced a hostile takeover attempt, and the bidders used confidential data only he and his legal team had access to, panic began to crack his calm. Late one night, Elena woke to find Victor pacing in his study, phone in hand, voice low and sharp. "Find who's behind this," he hissed. "I want names. I don't care what it costs." He didn't notice the way his reflection in the glass looked haunted, older than his years. What Victor didn't know was that somewhere across the city, Lena Hale was awake too. She sat in a modest but tastefully designed apartment, reading news updates on her tablet, the headlines detailing Victor's latest financial crisis. Her expression was calm. Too calm. On her wall hung framed degrees: law, finance, business administration. She had rebuilt herself, quietly, deliberately, piece by piece. Every headline was a chess move she had prepared years ago. She'd learned every law he once twisted against her. She'd invested through shell companies, disguised her identity, and now, bit by bit, she was pulling the ground out from under his empire. She didn't want just revenge. She wanted truth. Meanwhile, Elena began noticing something strange. Victor was hiding files, locking drawers, and avoiding eye contact. The man who once promised her the world now looked like someone trying to keep it from collapsing. And every night she wondered, what did he do to deserve this storm? Lena Hale hadn't always been the woman who could topple fortunes. Once she was simply a wife, hopeful, trusting, and blinded by love. Victor had built his empire during their marriage, and the world assumed it was all his genius. Few knew it began with her inheritance, money she thought they were investing together. But love can disguise betrayal as partnership. The day she found the forged documents, her name on papers she never signed, was the day the woman inside her died, and another was born. One who wouldn't cry. One who would learn. When the divorce came, Victor made sure she left with almost nothing. "You'll thank me someday," he'd told her, smirking as the court stamped its approval. But she didn't thank him. She studied. Nights turned into years: law school, financial courses, investment seminars. Every sleepless hour became a brick in the foundation of her quiet empire. She became a ghost in the system, a silent shareholder in Victor's ventures through shell corporations that bore names only she understood. Each alias was a mask, each investment a seed of revenge. Meanwhile, Victor continued to rise. He remarried. He smiled for the cameras. He believed Lena had faded into the fog of his past. But every new property he bought, every contract he signed, passed under her watchful eye. She didn't need to destroy him immediately. She just needed him to believe he was safe. Now, with his company unraveling, Lena's patience was paying off. Each lawsuit wasn't random. It was placed, timed, and triggered by her. Every lawyer she hired was trained to hit him where it hurt: credibility, reputation, legacy. But revenge has a cost, and loneliness was hers. Some nights she stared out the window, wondering if it was worth it. The city glowed like fire below her, and she remembered the woman she used to be, the one who believed in love instead of justice. Yet when she saw his name in the news again, the doubt faded. "You took everything," she whispered. "Now I'll take it back." Across the city, Victor was drowning in silence. His board was panicking, His lawyers couldn't find a single legal trail that made sense, and his investors were calling for answers he didn't have. For the first time, the man who controlled everything realized he was losing control. Elena watched him unravel from the sidelines. She wanted to help, but every time she asked questions, Victor snapped. "Just trust me," he'd say, but the words rang hollow. She began to dig on her own, online archives, old interviews, whispers from journalists. The name that kept resurfacing was Lena Hale. One morning, while Victor was away, a letter arrived at their penthouse. No return address, no name, just a single line typed in bold. Everything you think you own was never his to give. Elena's hand trembled as she read it. Somewhere deep down, she knew, this wasn't a threat. It was a truth waiting to explode. Elena sat frozen at the marble breakfast counter, the anonymous letter trembling in her hand. The city outside glimmered as if nothing had changed, yet inside her chest, something cracked. Everything you think you own was never his to give. The words echoed like a curse. She turned the paper over. No signature, no address, only a faint perfume of ink and intent. Victor's voice drifted from the other room, brisk, commanding, impatient on a call. For a moment she wondered if the letter was a trap, a rival's ploy. But something about the phrasing, calm, precise, felt personal. It wasn't a threat, it was a revelation. She hid the note between the pages of a book before he entered. "You look pale," Victor said, eyes sharp beneath the charm. She forced a smile. "Just didn't sleep." He kissed her cheek, distracted. "We can't afford weakness right now, darling. The board's breathing down my neck." His voice carried that old arrogance, the one that made people obey before they even thought. When he left for the office, she exhaled, pulled out the letter again, and read it until the words blurred. Curiosity turned into resolve. She would find out who sent it, and why. If her husband had enemies, she deserved to know which one had aimed at her. At Hale Enterprises, Victor's morning was chaos wrapped in power suits. His CFO reported another mysterious buyout attempt, this time from a company named Marigold Investments. Victor slammed the report shut. Who are they? No one knew. Then find out, he barked. Today. He didn't realize the name Marigold once belonged to a small garden Lena had adored. That evening, Elena searched Victor's study. Locked drawers, encrypted files, old contracts. Everything screamed secrecy. In a folder marked 1998, Foundations, she found documents listing her husband's early assets, and another name beneath his, Lena Hale. Each signature was hers. Each date matched the time he claimed to have started from nothing. Her pulse quickened. Who is this woman? A business partner? An ex? She opened her laptop and typed the name. The search is filled with old society photos, Victor and Lena smiling at charity events, articles about their divorce, whispers of financial discrepancies. And then a headline buried deep in archives. Hale divorce settled, wife receives minimal assets. Minimal. The word stung. Meanwhile, across the city, Lena watched the same news feed from her apartment. She knew the letter had been delivered. She imagined Elena reading it, the same way she once read her divorce papers. Heart racing, trust breaking. Revenge wasn't always loud. Sometimes it arrived quietly, sealed in an envelope. But Lena wasn't heartless. She didn't hate Elena. The young wife was collateral, a mirror of who Lena had once been. Hopeful, unguarded, believing Victor's lies. That was why she'd warned her. The truth wasn't meant to destroy her. It was meant to free her. Elena couldn't sleep. Victor returned late, smelling of whiskey and fury. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Just business," he muttered. When he stepped into the shower, she slipped his phone from his jacket pocket. The call logs revealed repeated numbers labeled only as L and Associates. She dialed one. A woman answered. Calm. Confidence. Lena Hale's office. Her breath caught. The ghost had a voice. Smooth. Controlled. "May I help you?" the woman asked. Elena hung up, but the sound of that name would echo through her dreams. She finally understood. Her husband's past wasn't dead. It was orchestrating his downfall. The next morning, Victor announced they were flying to Chicago to handle business. Elena agreed, but secretly she made her own call. "Ms. Hale," she whispered, "I think we need to talk." The cafe sat on a quiet corner in Soho, neutral ground. The kind of place where no one looked twice at a stranger nursing a cappuccino. Lena chose it deliberately. Sunlight spilled through tall windows, cutting across polished tables and the faint scent of roasted coffee. She waited, calm, steady, her expression unreadable. Across town, Elena's hands trembled as her driver slowed to the curb. She'd dressed carefully, neutral colors, minimal jewelry, a mask of confidence over the storm inside. She'd spent the flight to Chicago turning one question over and over. What kind of woman tries to destroy her ex-husband and warns his new wife first? When their eyes met for the first time, silence filled the space between them. Elena expected anger, even hatred, but Lena's gaze carried neither. It was sharp but not cruel, like a surgeon studying the wound before making the first cut. I wasn't sure you'd come, Lena said first, voice calm but steady. I had to know who you are, Elena replied. You already do, Lena said quietly. You just don't know him yet. The words landed like glass shattering softly between them. Lena opened the leather folder. Inside were old contracts, property deeds, and letters written years ago, all with Victor's signature. But beside them, copies of her own signature, some forged, some coerced. Your husband built Hale Properties using my inheritance, she said evenly. Every hotel, every tower, it started with my money and my silence. Elena stared at the evidence. You're saying he. I'm not saying, Lena interrupted softly. I'm proving. She slid across a page stamped by a court years ago, one that dismissed her claims for lack of evidence. He forged consent to access my trust fund. I didn't have the power or the knowledge to fight back then. Now I do. Elena's throat tightened. The Victor she knew, charming, brilliant, devoted, felt suddenly hollow. Why tell me? She whispered. Lena leaned forward, voice low. Because he's unraveling. And when he falls, he'll take you with him if you're standing too close. Outside, a sleek black car idled, Victor's security detail. He'd grown paranoid since the lawsuits began, assigning men to shadow his every move. What he didn't know was that one of them now watched through the cafe window, phone in hand. Lena noticed. She didn't flinch. He's watching even when you think he's not, she murmured. You'll need to decide whose truth you believe. Elena followed her gaze and felt her stomach drop. He sent someone? Lena smiled faintly. Victor doesn't trust anyone, not even himself. The conversation stretched for an hour. By the end, the air between them had shifted from suspicion to uneasy respect. Lena handed Elena a flash drive. Everything you'll need is on here, records, transactions, statements. But be careful. Once you open this, there's no pretending you don't know. As Elena stood to leave, Lena's final words followed her like a whisper. He thinks I want revenge. He's wrong. I want the truth, public, undeniable. You can help me, or you can watch him destroy you too. When Elena reached home that night, Victor was waiting. Long day? He asked, eyes searching hers too closely. She smiled faintly. Just meetings. He kissed her forehead, but his eyes lingered on the handbag where the flash drive hid. Later, alone in the study, she plugged in the drive. Her screen flooded with files, contracts, and bank transfers linking Lena's inheritance to Victor's empire. Each click peeled away a layer of illusion. And with every revelation, the man she married disappeared. By midnight, she closed the laptop. There was no denying it anymore. Her husband's success was built on theft, and the woman he'd stolen from was now rewriting his legacy. Victor Hale had built his life on control. Every deal, every detail, every person predictable, managed, and owned. But lately, he could feel the cracks forming, like pressure beneath marble. Things were slipping through his fingers, assets, allies, even sleep. And now, his home no longer felt safe. Elena had become distant. She smiled at breakfast, nodded during meetings, but her eyes had changed. They no longer looked at him. They looked through him. He noticed the subtle glances at her phone, the way she'd retreat to the study late at night. He told himself it was stress. He didn't yet realize she was keeping his entire history in her handbag. The next day, Victor's private investigator arrived unannounced. A tall, quiet man named Graham Voss, ex-military, loyal, expensive. You said you wanted to know who's been leaking, Graham said. I found something you'll want to see. Inside the envelope were photographs, grainy, zoomed in, taken from across the street. Elena sitting in a cafe. Opposite her, Lena Hale. Victor's blood ran cold. He didn't speak for several seconds. The sound of his breathing filled the room. Then, quietly, dangerously, he said, How long ago? 3 days, Graham replied. Victor's jaw tightened. She met with her. He didn't have to say the name. The silence between them said everything. That night, Elena returned home to find Victor in his office, calm, too calm. You've been busy, he said without looking up. Her pulse spiked. Just errands. He turned his monitor around. The photo was on his screen. You met her. Elena's throat went dry. I wanted to understand what's happening to us, she said softly. She told me things about the company, about you, things I couldn't ignore. She's lying, Victor said, voice rising. She's been obsessed with ruining me for years. Elena stepped closer. Then prove it. Show me she's wrong. Victor slammed the laptop shut. You think you know what kind of man I am? You have no idea what it takes to build an empire. Empires built on stolen trust always fall, she replied quietly. For a brief second, Victor saw something in her eyes, something that reminded him of Lena. Strength. Defiance. It terrified him. After she left the room, Victor called Graham again. Keep watching her. Every move, every call. I want to know who's in her ear. Yes, sir, Graham replied. Victor ended the call and stared at the city below, muttering, if Lena wants a war, she'll get one. But what Victor didn't know, Graham was already compromised. Weeks earlier, Lena had found him. Quietly. Professionally. She offered double his rate and one promise. Protect Elena. He'd accepted. Now the man Victor trusted most was sending Lena everything he learned. That same night, Elena couldn't sleep. She replayed her conversation with Lena over and over, the way the older woman's voice trembled slightly when she mentioned justice. On impulse, she texted a number Lena had written on a napkin. He knows. A reply came seconds later. Then it's time. Across the city, Lena closed her laptop, exhaled, and opened a new file labeled Phase 3, Exposure. You've hidden behind your towers long enough, Victor, she whispered. Let's see how you handle daylight. The next morning, headlines hit the news feeds like lightning. Hale Properties under investigation for fraudulent funding. TV anchors dissected Victor's empire in real time. Investors pulled out. Partners vanished. And in every clip, one question echoed: who leaked the files? Victor's phone buzzed relentlessly. Board members screaming. Lawyers panicking. He felt the walls close in. For the first time, he realized someone inside had betrayed him. And he didn't know who. That evening, he opened his safe to find it half empty. Confidential files gone. The only person who knew the combination besides him was Elena. But the security footage showed something worse. Graham. He dialed Graham's number. No answer. He dialed again. Still nothing. Then his phone buzzed, a message, anonymous, from an encrypted address. You taught me how to play, Victor. I just learned to win. He froze. The sender's name, Lena Hale. The morning Victor Hale was served his first federal subpoena, New York looked the same. Steel towers, taxi horns, winter light. But nothing in him would ever be the same again. The knock on his penthouse door was polite, almost gentle, and the envelope bore the weight of ruin. He read the words twice before they sank in. Fraud, embezzlement, falsified consent. Every accusation mirrored the truth he'd buried years ago. The irony cut deeper than any lawyer ever could. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed with journalists like bees scenting blood. Microphones glinted, cameras flashed. The man who once commanded headlines now flinched from them. Inside the car, silence. Elena sat beside him, unreadable. She'd watched him lie to the world, and now the world was answering back. At the courthouse, flashbulbs burst like gunfire. Victor's attorney whispered strategies, but he barely heard. Across the crowd, he saw a face, familiar, composed, devastating. Lena. She stood near the steps, no smile, no gloat, just quiet acknowledgement. Their eyes met for a single second. It felt like years compressed into one heartbeat. The man who once believed himself untouchable saw the architect of his fall, and realized she wasn't celebrating. She was witnessing justice. Inside, the courtroom smelled of paper, tension, and truth. The judge read the allegations. Victor's empire, valued at billions, was now under federal seizure pending investigation. One by one, his properties slipped into government control. That night, Lena walked home through falling snow. Her phone buzzed, a message from Graham. Phase 3 complete. He's cornered. She typed only 2 words back. Not yet. Back in the penthouse, Elena poured whiskey she didn't drink. The news blared in the background. Commentators debating how one of America's richest men could collapse overnight. She muted it. In the quiet, she whispered, "You did this to yourself." Victor entered, rage simmering beneath exhaustion. You've been talking to her again. Elena didn't deny it. She's not your enemy, Victor. She's your mirror. He laughed bitterly. Mirrors break. So do kings, she replied. He threw the glass into the fireplace, amber liquid exploding into flame. Everything I built, everything, was for us. Elena's voice was steady. No, Victor. It was for you. By dawn, subpoenas turned into seizures. Federal agents swept through corporate offices, servers confiscated, accounts frozen. Reporters called it the Hale collapse. Lena watched it unfold live, expression unreadable, hands clasped together as if in prayer. Elena's phone rang. Lena's voice came through softly. It's over. No, Elena said. Not yet. He still thinks he can win. Lena sighed. Then let him fight ghosts. Later that day, Victor stormed into his office for one last act of control, only to find security badges disabled, passwords revoked, staff gone. Even his assistant wouldn't meet his eyes. Powerless, he walked the empty corridor like a ghost haunting his own empire. He ended up outside one of his hotels, his name still glowing above the entrance, though not for long. The doorman hesitated before nodding politely. Ownership had already changed hands. Across the street, a sleek car waited. Inside, Lena watched silently as Victor stared up at the building. For a moment, pity flickered in her eyes, but justice demanded silence. She whispered, "Now you understand what you took from me." Then she drove away. Behind her, the sign flickered, the H in Hale burning out until only ale remained. The empire had drunk itself dry. Victor Hale vanished for 72 hours. No statements, no sightings, no phone signals. Reporters speculated he'd fled the country, but those who knew him understood. Victor never ran. He recalculated. He hid inside one of his lesser-known developments, a half-finished estate outside Albany, skeletal steel and silent halls. Alone with blueprints and rage, he began plotting the only thing he still controlled, his revenge. On a battered laptop, he opened encrypted drives the feds hadn't found. Hidden accounts, offshore partners, favors owed by politicians and bankers. If Lena wants exposure, he thought, I'll show her how exposure burns. Meanwhile, Lena moved carefully. She'd predicted retaliation, but not silence. Silence from Victor meant calculation, and that frightened her more than anger. She doubled security, changed phones, yet couldn't shake the feeling that every shadow watched. Graham met her in a quiet diner upstate. He's off the grid, he said. No flights, no trace. That means he's planning something. Lena stirred her coffee. Then we stay ahead. If he wants war, he'll find out I've already mapped the battlefield. Back in the city, Elena was under surveillance by both of them. Victor had planted a silent tracker in her phone before disappearing. Lena had embedded protective software that turned that tracker into a mirror. Every time Victor watched, she watched him watching. Elena tried to return to normal life, but normal was gone. Friends avoided her, the press hounded her, and half the city treated her as either accomplice or victim. She realized the only path forward was the truth, and maybe forgiveness. 3 nights later, Victor's message reached her inbox. No greeting, no signature, just coordinates and a single line. Come if you want answers. Against reason, she went. The estate loomed like a fortress of half-built dreams. Victor waited inside, unshaven, exhausted, and dangerous. You think she's righteous? He said. She's using you. Elena's reply was calm. And what did you use me for, Victor? He paced, voice rising. I gave you everything, safety, wealth, power. You gave me lies, she said. And now they're yours alone. For a heartbeat, he almost laughed. You're both the same, playing martyr while bleeding me dry. Outside, Graham's car idled. He watched through binoculars, ready if things turned violent. He'd seen that look in Victor's eyes before. The moment a man decides desperation is cheaper than conscience. Victor stopped pacing. You think she outsmarted me? She stole from me again, my name, my legacy. Elena took a breath. No, Victor. She reclaimed it. Something inside him snapped. He slammed his fist against the steel column, echoing thunder filling the hall. Sirens sounded in the distance. Not police, press drones. The world had found him. He turned toward Elena, realization dawning. You brought them? She shook her head. You did. You called attention the moment you disappeared. When agents swarmed the property minutes later, Victor didn't resist. He just smiled faintly, eyes fixed on some invisible point beyond them. Tell her, he said to Elena. I'm not done. By dawn, news feeds lit up again. Victor Hale arrested after 3-day disappearance. Lena read it alone in her kitchen. For the first time in years, she exhaled fully. Justice felt quieter than she expected. But the calm didn't last. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, and froze at the voice. You really think prison is the end? Victor's tone was low, almost amused. You taught me everything I needed to know about hiding money. Did you think I'd stop there? The world thought Victor Hale was finished. The courts had him, the headlines crucified him, and Lena finally slept without nightmares. But while everyone watched his downfall, Victor was busy turning invisibility into power. Inside federal custody, Victor wasn't alone. His cellmates weren't common criminals. They were men he'd once financed quietly, hackers, ex-bankers, offshore brokers. And now they owed him favors. Through coded messages and a hidden laptop routed through contraband channels, he accessed accounts no one knew existed. Assets hidden behind offshore trusts, layered under shell corporations created years earlier in Lena's name. Lena, meanwhile, was celebrating closure. She'd just signed a contract donating part of Victor's seized assets to women's education initiatives. Cameras flashed, applause filled the room, and for a moment, she felt light again. But celebration breeds complacency. That night, her phone buzzed with an encrypted alert from Graham. Your accounts are being accessed. From inside a federal server. Within hours, millions disappeared from seized holdings, vanishing into unknown accounts registered in the Cayman Islands. Investigators were baffled. The funds weren't stolen, they'd simply moved. Graham arrived at Lena's apartment before dawn. He's alive in the system, he said. Whatever he set up, it's running on automation. A ghost version of him. Lena rubbed her temples. He built a machine to keep working after he was gone. Across the prison, Victor smiled as he read the same reports. Every alert confirmed his control. He whispered to himself, you can strip a man of everything, except his design. Lena gathered her legal team, demanding access to the financial logs. What they found made no sense. Coded transfers signed under her old digital signature, one she hadn't used in 10 years. Victor had cloned her identity. It's like he's still out there, Elena whispered when Lena called her that evening. He's haunting everything. Lena replied softly, ghosts only linger where they're invited. Determined to end it, Lena and Graham traveled to a small data storage facility in Nevada, one of Victor's forgotten tech acquisitions. There, deep underground, they found the real secret. Servers humming with his empire's digital memory. A voice echoed from the intercom, Victor's pre-recorded message. If you're hearing this, you finally caught up. But the truth is, Lena, I built this world with you. And I'll make sure part of you stays inside it forever. Suddenly, screens came alive with scrolling code, his final failsafe. Every file connected to their shared history began replicating online. Private emails, legal drafts, marriage records. The world was about to see everything. Shut it down, Graham shouted. Lena pulled the emergency lever, sparks bursting as circuits overloaded. The room plunged into darkness. The hum died, but the damage was done. By morning, social media exploded. Thousands of files labeled #HaleArchives flooded the internet. Records revealing not just Victor's corruption, but everyone who'd helped him. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was exposure without boundaries. Elena saw her own name among the leaks, proof of her silence agreements, her marriage payments, her complicity. She realized Victor's ghost assets weren't money. They were people. Everyone who'd once protected him was now currency. That evening, Lena stood by the Hudson River, watching city lights ripple like broken code. He wanted immortality, she murmured. But he built infamy. Graham beside her said, then end it for good. Burn what's left. She nodded, eyes reflecting the skyline. I will. Even if it burns me too. Inside his cell, Victor listened to the chaos through a smuggled radio. Every scandal, every name, his fingerprints were on all of it. He smiled faintly. You wanted the truth, Lena. Now the world's choking on it. Lena Hale hadn't slept in 2 days. The HaleArchives leaks had detonated across the internet, taking down corporations, politicians, and investors. Every name tied to Victor's empire. But amid the chaos, one file stayed locked, Vault_13. She called Graham. Everything's open except this. It's encrypted under both our names, mine and Victor's. Graham frowned. Then whatever's in there was meant for you. Maybe for after. Lena hesitated before opening the archive. She'd spent years unearthing every secret Victor buried, but some truths felt radioactive. She pressed enter. The password prompt blinked. Her hands trembled as she typed the date of their divorce. Access granted. Inside were hundreds of video logs, recorded conversations, business deals, private moments she'd forgotten existed. He had documented everything, even her tears. And then one video autoplayed. Victor appeared on screen, years younger, confident, cruel. "If you're watching this, Lena," he said, "then I've lost. But understand this. Everything you took from me was never yours. It was borrowed. Even your redemption." Her breath caught. He wasn't talking about money. He was talking about the Hale Foundation, the charity now under her name. He had designed it as a failsafe. The moment she signed over any asset, a clause activated. The foundation owed restitution to his estate. In one move, Victor had outmaneuvered her from beyond prison walls. If she didn't act fast, the foundation would default, pulling funds from schools, homes, and lives she'd promised to rebuild. His revenge wasn't about wealth. It was about her conscience. Graham arrived within the hour. "Can we override it?" "Not legally," she said. "But maybe morally." He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." Lena replied, "It has to be." They flew to D.C. overnight. Inside a marble-lined records hall, Lena presented herself to the Department of Justice. "I want to donate everything," she said. "Not from his estate, from mine." The clerk blinked. "Ma'am, that's irreversible." "That's the point," she answered. By transferring all remaining shares into public trust, she broke Victor's restitution clause. The Empire's remnants would belong to no one, not even him. Back in his cell, Victor heard the news. For the first time, silence replaced his smirk. His ghost assets vanished. His final power move neutralized. He muttered, "She turned my empire into air." Lena returned to New York exhausted, but freer than she'd felt in years. Reporters shouted questions about her decision. Why give it all away? She smiled faintly. Because ownership was the problem. That night, Elena visited her. "You ended him," she said. Lena shook her head. "No. I ended the story he wrote for me." Elena exhaled. "Then maybe it's time we start our own." Across the city, a guard entered Victor's cell. "You've got a visitor." He looked up. "Who?" "Your ex-wife." Victor's mouth twitched. "Which one?" "Both." The meeting room smelled of disinfectant and memory. Victor smirked. "Come to gloat." Lena leaned forward. "No. To end this." Elena placed a small folder on the table. Photos of children in the schools their money had saved. "That's what your empire became." For once, Victor said nothing. He just stared at the images, the faces of kids smiling in uniforms bearing the Hale Foundation crest. After a long silence, he whispered, "I built towers. You built people." /. As the guards led him back to his cell, Lena called out, "Goodbye, Victor." He turned slightly. "You know," he said, "losing everything didn't kill me. Realizing you never needed me." Then he walked away. Outside, winter snow began to fall again, soft, slow, forgiving. Lena tilted her head up and let the flakes melt on her skin. She wasn't thinking of victory or vengeance anymore. Just peace. 2 weeks after their final prison meeting, Lena thought it was truly over. Victor was serving a decades-long sentence, the foundation thrived, and her name, once synonymous with scandal, had become a symbol of resilience. Then, one night, a small black envelope slid under her door. No address. No return stamp. Just her name handwritten in Victor's precise, angular script. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. "Play it alone." For a long moment, she just stared at it. Curiosity felt like temptation. Fear felt like memory. But closure demanded courage. She plugged it in. Static, then a voice, Victor's. Older, rasped, quieter than she remembered. "Lena, if this reached you, the system I built finally stopped obeying me." "Good. That means you won." He paused, breath audible through the speaker. "I recorded this long before the trial. Not to threaten you, not to trap you, just to leave you the truth no court ever wanted." The screen flickered to an image. A younger Victor standing beside a hospital bed. A woman's voice whispered from off-camera, her mother's. "Promise me you'll take care of her inheritance," she said. Lena covered her mouth. She hadn't seen this in decades. Her mother's fortune, her inheritance, had been what Victor used to start his empire. "You stole it," she whispered. On screen, Victor replied to the dying woman, "I will protect it." The recording continued. "I thought building something huge would honor her. But somewhere, I stopped protecting it and started protecting me." His tone cracked. "You were right to destroy it." Then silence. The screen turned black except for a final line of text. "There's one more key. Check the Foundation archives, box 117. The next morning, Lena and Graham drove to the Foundation's secure storage. Rows of labeled boxes filled the vault like quiet witnesses. She found it, box 117, and opened it slowly. Inside lay a small wooden case containing a legal deed, dated before their marriage. The document transferred ownership of her mother's remaining estate to Lena Hale Trust. He had never filed it. It meant the inheritance had always been hers. Graham exhaled. He tried to return it before everything fell apart. Lena whispered, "And I never knew." For the first time, she didn't feel hatred. Just a complicated mercy. "He wasn't trying to hurt me at the end," she said. "He was trying to confess." Later that evening, she visited the prison one final time. Victor looked older, thinner, quieter. When he saw her, he didn't smirk. He just said, "You found it." "I did," she replied. He nodded slowly. "Then I can rest." "You already are," she said. They sat in silence, two people bound by history, finally unarmed. When Lena left, the sun was setting, orange bleeding into purple across the sky. She didn't look back. Some stories end not with justice or revenge, but understanding. Days later, the foundation launched a new initiative, the Hale Scholarship for Second Chances. In the press release, Lena wrote, "Even the fallen can teach us how to rebuild." In his cell, Victor received a clipping of that article. He smiled faintly, folded it neatly, and tucked it inside his Bible. For once, peace didn't feel like surrender. It felt like truth. It had been 3 months since the recording. Lena Hale's life had gone quiet. No more headlines, no courtrooms, no ghosts. Just mornings spent walking along the Hudson and nights reading in peace. Yet peace rarely stays untested. One afternoon, a knock echoed through her townhouse. When she opened the door, a courier stood holding a sealed brown envelope. "Delivery for Ms. Hale," he said. No sender, no signature. Only a wax stamp bearing Victor's company crest. Her pulse quickened. "Where did you get this?" The man shrugged. "Came through internal routing. No one remembers logging it." Then he left. She turned the envelope over. Inside was a single flash drive and a folded letter. Handwritten, but not by Victor. The script was familiar. It was Graham's. "If you're reading this, I'm gone," it began. "But before I left, Victor asked me to safeguard one file he couldn't release himself. He said you deserved to know who helped you all these years." Her heart sank. Graham had disappeared a week earlier, resigned from the foundation with no warning. She'd assumed he wanted a quiet life. Now she wasn't sure he'd found one. She inserted the flash drive. A single folder appeared. The messenger. Inside, dozens of encrypted documents, emails, call logs, offshore transfers, all pointing to one thing. Graham had been the one who delivered Victor's recordings, letters, and legal files. The screen flickered again, revealing a video, Graham himself, recorded weeks earlier. He looked weary, unshaven, yet resolute. "Lena, if this finds you, then I've done what he asked and what you needed. I wasn't working for Victor or against him. I was working for the truth." He paused, sighing. "I saw two brilliant people destroy each other because the world taught them power mattered more than love. I couldn't stop the war, but I could make sure the story ended cleanly. That envelope you got? That was me, after he was gone." Tears slipped down Lena's cheeks. Graham hadn't betrayed either of them. He had been the bridge, the only one who believed they both deserved peace. The video ended with his final words. "If you ever wonder whether Victor truly changed, look for the hidden line in his confession file. It's there for you." Lena reopened Victor's confession video. She slowed the footage, scanning frame by frame. Then she saw it, a brief flash of text at the end, invisible at normal speed. Account 217, Scholarship Continuation Fund. She traced the account. It wasn't hidden offshore. It was local, registered to the foundation itself. Inside rested millions. Money Victor had funneled quietly before his arrest, untouchable by any court. His final act wasn't vengeance, it was restitution. Lena covered her mouth, overwhelmed. For the first time, she saw him not as the monster who stole her life, but the man who, at the very end, tried to give it back. Weeks later, she visited the prison one final time. The guard hesitated. "You're too late," he said quietly. "Mr. Hale passed away last night. Heart failure." She walked out into the yard, wind biting at her coat. Closing her eyes, she whispered, "Goodbye, Victor. And thank you for finally letting me go." A month later, a ceremony was held for the first recipients of the Hale Scholarship. Dozens of students stood on stage, smiling toward her. As applause filled the auditorium, Lena felt something she hadn't in years, wholeness. Afterward, she placed a small photo of Graham and Victor on her office shelf. You were both messengers, she murmured. You just delivered different kinds of truth. That night, the city outside hummed softly. No scandals, no headlines, just life continuing. Lena opened her window, letting in the cool air. We're finally even, she said to the skyline. Now rest.